Hi, hello. I think I'm live now. Just checking connection. Hello, everyone. Just waiting for some more people to join. Hello for the ones who are joining now. We are about to start our live today with really deep topic. This is one of my favorite topics, and the reason why is it's been very important in my personal development journey. So we're gonna give good tips, and you are gonna follow some of the exercises that we're gonna give. And I have a very special guest today as well. Just waiting for her to connect, and we can start. Hello for the ones joining. Hi, Mary. Good to see you here. Hello. So just waiting a few minutes until Megan can join us. So let me just check if she's already here. Hi, Shalom. Good to see you here. Feel free to put any questions you might have, and we can address all the questions as we go, or we can also give a few minutes at the end. We are planning to do the live around 30-40 minutes. Just not make it too long, so everyone can keep going with their lives. Hello, my friend. Let me just check here to invite Megan. Megan, if you are online, you have to request joining the live. So not sure if she's here, but in the meantime, I'm gonna explain quickly the topic. I think we have posted in this week what's the topic about. So the topic is attachment theory. We're gonna give a quick intro of what is attachment theory, and the different attachment styles, and how we can move towards more secure attachment in relationships and also in friendships. So attachment theory affects not only romantic relationships but also friendships. So I cannot see Megan here, so let me just add her. Okay, I think I found how to invite her. Okay, hopefully she's gonna join soon. Hi, Steffi. Okay, I think we have Megan here. Just waiting for the connection to come through. Are you there, Megan? I cannot see her. I think, let me have a look. We might need to restart because I cannot see her on the call. I saw her joining, but then something happened. I think it's not coming through. Oh, okay. I think it's technical issues as always. Okay. We might need to restart because we are getting an error. She's messaging me saying she cannot join. So we might need to restart the live and okay. Yeah. There you go.
Oh my gosh, it takes a while.
Technical issues, yeah. Just when we need them, right? When we need like to start soon. And yeah, I was just giving an intro of what we were gonna cover. Okay. But yeah, just before we kick off, I just wanted to to do an intro of yourself. Megan is a dating and mindset coach. So anything that you would like to share with us, Megan, about the work that you do before we kick it off with the topic?
Yeah, I mean, I work with wonderful, wonderful women. I can see some of my former clients are in following along now. I've worked with some wonderful, wonderful women in the space of basically understanding themselves and their emotional world and things like this in order to be able to have relationships and have healthier relationships. And it's such a, yeah, it's an honor to be able to do this work. I absolutely love it. And the things I've seen, the transformations I've seen with people are just phenomenal. And it's really based all on sort of like my experience and also the training I had in mindset work and NLP and things like that as well.
Yeah, amazing. So Megan and I do very similar work. We work with mindset, with identifying relationship patterns, things that are stopping us from achieving the relationship we want. But the main focus that is we want to reinforce in the amazing women we work with is the relationship with ourselves. So as you know, and with the content that we usually post, everything starts from within. So if we want to attract or if we want to improve any relationships, not only romantic relationships, it's a journey that starts with ourselves. So the topic today, as I was saying, Megan, and feel free to also just jump in and give your ideas and thoughts, is attachment theory. So before we kick it off, I wanted to give a little bit of a story on why we're doing this topic. And I think for me is one of the main, not the most important, but one of the main ones. Sorry, my light just turned off. In my personal development journey. So when I started looking within and working on myself, I just found attachment theory, and this gave me a lot of understanding about my dynamics in relationships. So an important thing that I know, Megan, you also agree, is that attachment theory gives us an understanding and knowledge, but it's not a set stone on how a person behaves. So it is not fit, and it changes over time. So it can be changed, it can be healed, and it can transform. So what's your idea on that, Megan?
I think, yeah, it's one of those funny things, attachment theory. Certainly, I agree. For myself, that was one of the first things that really blew my mind in terms of taking me from a place of, I'm broken, there's something really wrong with me, nobody else has this thing that's wrong with them, it's just me, I'm the only one that can't have these relationships, I'm the only one that can't find somebody who wants to be with me, there's clearly something broken about me, and taking me from a place to going, oh, actually there are psychological reasons perhaps why this is happening, and there's a whole theory written about it, and it sort of took that pressure off, and it really alleviated that for me. So I think that was magnificent. But what I see a lot, and why I don't like to often give too much to attachment theory, is I see a lot of people find attachment theory and become very obsessed and fixated on labeling themselves, labeling other people, and creating kind of, I guess, buckets and labels to define other people, and aren't using it for what it's intended, which is a theory, which is an understanding, a general understanding of relationships, because the truth of the matter is, as human beings, we're very nuanced. We're much more complicated than being able to label us, bucket us up into nice little neat packages. It's just not that simple. And so I think there's a lot of people who get a bit stuck in the healing process when they just identify with an attachment style, or start labeling other people around them with certain attachment styles. And from that place, it's very difficult to heal from what we're trying to heal from, which is, of course, the kind of the behavioral traits that sort of come up with attachment wounding, which of course sabotage our relationships, or which of course prevent us from being able to have healthy relationships. So that's actually more what I focus on, is looking at, okay, what behaviors are you exhibiting, or what triggers are you exhibiting that sort of show that there's an area that needs sort of looking at or healing, rather than you're anxiously attached or you're avoidantly attached and that's it, write that person off because they're avoidantly attached, or slap a label on them and be done with them. I think it's a dangerous thing, and it certainly doesn't help with healing.
Yeah, definitely. And I think a very important part that you mentioned is just understanding that, it starts within, and it's not a way for us to label our partners or just to point fingers, but the other way around. It's a really good tool, or a good information for us to start looking within, and a relief that it's actually, we are not alone in these dynamics. It's a study that is been done throughout the years with children, and then in adulthood, and it can be transformed. So just to give a little bit of an understanding on what are the 4 different attachment styles, so then people kind of like understand what are we talking about. So attachment theory is a psychological study of children when they develop the attachment with their caregivers. And usually this attachment is also developed throughout their adulthood. So there's 4 different attachment styles. The first one is secure attachment. So when a kid develops a secure attachment is when both of the kids' caregivers were there to nurture the kids' basic needs, to support, to give nurture, and regulate the emotions. So that's a very important part as well. Being there for the kid when the kid is distressed, both caregivers were able to be there to soothe those emotions. Then anxious attachment is when one a caregiver was more present and the other one couldn't be present for any reasons. It could be because of work, it could be because that caregiver was the one providing for the family, so he could not give the attention and care that the kid needed. So the kid then identifies love as something that can be taken away. It's not something that is constant in their life. So I have one caregiver that is there for me, present, and can soothe myself, but then the other caregiver is constantly coming and going. So then that's when the anxiety or the worry about losing that attachment or losing that care and love is going to be taken away. The other attachment style is avoidant attachment styles, and it's usually when the kid grew up with one caregiver or both of the caregivers were not present. And usually this happens when both of the caregivers were emotionally unavailable. So the kid was not able to identify their own emotions, regulate emotions, express emotions. So the kid learned that it's not safe for me to show emotions, so therefore I'm going to repress. So for avoidant people, it's usually very hard to articulate and understand what is going on in their emotional world because they didn't have that knowledge and that example when they were kids. And then the last attachment style is a combination between anxious and avoidant, and it's called fearful avoidant, and it's also called ambivalent attachment style, which is, it can be usually when the person is with a partner who is more anxious, the person will take on the avoidant dynamic, or when the partner is avoidant, will take the anxious dynamic. So maybe we can share a little bit about if you want your clients or your own experience, Megan, on how you work through identifying your own attachment style, and how are you working through that now with clients or with yourself?
Yeah, I think as well, I just want to say it's important to understand that the kind of the scenarios that you just depicted there in childhood are not fixed. There are so many ways that these things can present, and often, you know, doesn't have to be as sinister, as overt as a parent having, you know, leaving the family, or kind of divorce, or there being alcoholism or anything like that. It can just simply be, you know, because we're never saying this is about blaming parents. It's about understanding how the child perceives how the parent shows up, which is a really important distinction to make, I think, because all parents, you know, they're doing the best they can with what they have. And so a lot of the time we can, a parent can be there but be emotionally unavailable because of their own relationship to self. And I think that's a really important point to note. You know, by all intents and purposes, you can have a great childhood. Your mum was there, your dad was there, but you can still develop these wounds. And that's a really big point that I want to make, because a lot of my clients will come with that kind of scenario. They'll say, look, I don't really understand how this impacts me. You know, my mum was there, my dad was there, they love me, they support me, all of these things. But what we're actually talking about is potentially there is unavailability in the parents' own emotional world for themselves. And so they can't fully give to their children in a way that allows the child to develop from the point of view of feeling like they're good enough, feeling like they're enough, just because the parent themselves isn't emotionally present with themselves to be able to give that to the child, if that makes sense. It's kind of a little bit like well-meaning parents, and everybody is well-meaning. It's about how the child brain perceives what's going on. So a lot of the time we can think about So as a child, we have a very, very egocentric brain. It's not fully developed, doesn't have the objective awareness of, oh, mum's really busy at the moment. She has to leave the room for 5 minutes to sort out my little brother. All it can understand is I need something from mum, and mum has now left me. So it's those sorts of things. It's about understanding from the child brain is very different from an adult brain. And I think that's an important distinction.
Emotional tools, that we don't have when we're kids, that we identify everything as,
So we can learn these kind of attachment wounds just from how we perceive how the parent is showing up, rather than it being that a parent is, maliciously doing these things. And that's a really important distinction to make, I think. And certainly if I'm talking about my own attachment style and where I would look at that, well, it's complicated, right? It's very complicated, as this always is. And a lot of my clients will present in the same way. They will usually come and be like, yeah, I can identify with all sorts of different attachment styles. I can understand the anxious part, I can understand the avoidant part. Maybe I'm fearful avoidant. And I would also add to that fearful avoidance one, they're usually the more extreme cases of like abuse and things like that. And that's why they typically say it's about 5% of the population. Yet I have clients who come and relate to that, because what it is they relate to both styles. And this is why it's more important to look at what are your triggers, what are the behaviors that are presenting, rather than labeling yourself. Because I think it's far more helpful to say, where am I triggered? How am I triggered? And certainly I can relate to both anxious and avoidant and secure, right? And that's the thing. I think different circumstances, different relationships, different times in my life, I will relate more heavily to one than the other. And so it's more about that. It's more about looking in the gray rather than the black and the white. And that's sort of where I identify as like, let's look at the behavior, let's look at the trigger, and then sort of work backwards from there, rather than let's say I'm anxious or say I'm avoidant. And I think most of my clients present in similar ways, although some maybe more heavily in the anxious space, some more heavily in the avoidant space. But again, they can all present differently, because they're just a series of behaviors, and how one avoidantly attached person shows up is different to how another avoidantly attached person shows up. So it's all very nuanced. It's about sort of addressing the behavior rather than addressing like a bucket and putting people in buckets. So I know I keep going on about that, but it's my personal experience with clients and myself that's far more beneficial to look at.
I totally agree. And I think one of the main things also that for everyone to understand is, when we are talking about these different attachment styles, people might be asking, okay, but in what circumstances I'm gonna be able to see the differences? So usually it's about communication, how people communicate their own needs, how people communicate their own emotions, how we regulate as humans our own emotions. So it will vary between attachment styles, how I'm able to resolve conflict, how I see intimacy, how I see quality time, how I see sex, how I see intimacy. Like, all these topics are gonna be very different between attachment styles, but the goal is not okay, I'm not gonna be involving with someone who's got avoidant or an anxious. It's just coming together as two people with our own challenges in life, our own insecurities, because those situations are not going to make us less valuable or less lovable. And that's something that we need to understand. Sometimes we're in our own world thinking that we've been through so many things in childhood and relationships that we think, that's it, I'm broken, I'm not lovable, I'm not valued. But it's not about this. We all have different challenges, everyone. So if you're meeting someone that is actually presenting them as perfect, you know that person is holding a mask, because no one is perfect, right?
I think that's a big realization to have. And certainly some of my clients, I remember, that a lot of them have this kind of very warped view of themselves, that they're like broken, and that they might have identified with anxious attachment. They're like, I'm anxiously attached. And I keep meeting these people who are like really secure and all of this stuff. And I'm like, no one's 100% secure. We're like, we're going to get triggered. We're going to have these kind of issues no matter what. And it's all about your ability to cope or manage what comes up for you. And so if someone's presenting to you as, I've got my shit together and I'm perfect and everything's fine, that's probably an indicator they're not very self-aware.
Exactly. No, 100%. And another important factor that we sometimes just miss in the dating phase, because we usually are so focused on, you know, being chosen. So we need to change. And I think, Megan, you can talk a lot about that because you post a lot about this. I know that you kind of like focus a lot in your program about this. Is not about being chosen. It's about I'm gonna choose a partner that aligns with my values, that aligns with my lifestyle, that aligns with my relationship goals. So it's meeting, is coming together as two people, discovering ourselves, being curious about what are we looking for, having fun in the dating phase, but also addressing the important conversations. Don't miss this important part, because this is gonna show you if the person has actually the capacity to have the important conversations. So being able to identify compatibility at the beginning, I think, is very, very important as well.
Yeah, I think it's probably more that more anxiously attached side that tends to come into dating, with the idea of how can I attract as many people as possible, or how can I keep this person. They're the sorts of people that won't bring up that they're looking for a long-term relationship or mention that they want children. They also won't discuss if they're feeling anxious. There'll just be this sense of, I need to repress all of these things, because if I say these things, I'm going to lose this person. So if I repress all these things, I'll keep this person. And that mentality is all about being chosen. And it's actually detrimental to you, because in that process, you abandon yourself and your truth immediately from the word go. And so you attract people who need you to be needless and wantless. And so you end up attracting the very people that ultimately re-wound you or re-traumatize you in that same way.
Exactly.
We need to almost be coming from the position of, how can I repel as many people as possible? And it sounds counterintuitive, but that's the concept. You want to be repelling people that are basically not aligned with who you are, and not aligned with what you truly want, need, and feel. So the more you can come from that place, the more you're just going to have people drop off right, left, and center. And that's perfect, because the people that stick around are going to be the people that are actually going to see you for you and really, really embrace that and want to be with that. They're going to be the relationships that you ultimately will be compatible with. The problem is that most people aren't coming from that place when we're talking about dating.
Yeah, I think you touch a really good point as well, because we usually tend to attract what we are familiar with, but that doesn't mean that we can change what love is for us. If we grew up in a household where our parents didn't model us these healthy dynamics, we know as adults now what is a healthy relationship. And with the personal development journey that we get into, we learn more about the tools and what is a healthy relationship. So we start changing the way we see relationships, but also very important is to identify and transform your limiting beliefs. Because if we keep having the same limiting beliefs, we're going to bring situations into our life that are going to reaffirm this limiting belief. You know, let's say that an example could be people always leave. And that could be because your parents were not always there for you. So your limiting belief as kid is, when I love someone, they leave. So I cannot trust love. So if you come into relationships with that limiting belief and not being conscious about it, you're going to bring situations that are going to end up with the person leaving, because that's your limiting belief. That's your belief. That's what you are going to create. So you are attracting a situation that is reaffirming your belief. So that's why the work that we do, Megan and I, in identifying, limiting beliefs is one of the main keys as well, like relationship patterns, but just understanding that we all go through this, and it's only the brave ones that we want to go deep, and we have, we take courage and we take accountability, because it's not easy to face that pain. But we need, it's hard, and I've been through that, and I'm still going through it. It's a constant journey, and it's an ongoing journey of dealing with that pain, of dealing with that anxiety that we developed when we were kids, and changing the story, questioning your stories, and being able to transform those beliefs.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting, those beliefs. I think this is why working with somebody is invaluable, whether that's a coach, whether that's a therapist. It's invaluable, because you won't see you won't see where you're sabotaging yourself. That's just the nature of how we're designed. We're too biased in how we view the world that we won't see how we're sabotaging our relationships. And so if you can work with someone who can reflect back to you where you're showing up and it's not working for you, you're going to be able to get on top of those patterns pretty quickly, as opposed to just going out there and trying by yourself. I think that's one of the biggest things I would say to people is, this stuff is like, you don't know what you don't know, and you're not going to be able to figure it out on your own. You're going to, because you're so biased in the way that you view the world and view relationships, then unless you can have somebody reflect back to you that this thought process isn't actually helping you, or this thought process is flawed, you're not going to be able to see it or shift it. It's very difficult to. It's very, very difficult, and that's why it helps to work with somebody. But if we go back to attachment theory, because we've kind of gone off on a bit of a tangent, although like it's all very relevant. I think one of the things to really think about with attachment theory is the idea that it comes from this wounding of both abandonment and a wounding around fear of intimacy. So fear of abandonment, fear of intimacy, which is actually present in both anxious and avoidant. And I think this is again why it's such a misconception of this idea that I'm anxious, they're avoidant, they're somehow defective, I'm somehow, broken, but in a different way. It's really about understanding the wounding exists within both. It's just they present slightly differently. I think that's a really important point to make when we're talking about attachment theory as well. I like to talk about this because I think it's about understanding the other kind of attachments, or understanding that other people's attachments, in order to be able to understand why someone would do what they're doing, and why and then also understand why you're triggered by that, or why that brings up certain feelings within you. And so it's really important to understand, I guess, that the avoidantly attached tend to have a conscious fear of intimacy, and the anxiously attached tend to have a conscious fear of abandonment. So they're very aware that, so anxiously attached are very aware that someone could leave them at any point in time. There's this feeling of they're going, when are they going? I'm hyper vigilant around the fact that they might be leaving. And avoidantly attached is very much aware of, oh my God, this person's coming too close. They're taking away my freedom. I feel like my independence is threatened by how much this person's depending on me. So they're usually their triggers. But ultimately, why those people tend to be attracted to one another is to do with that subconscious fear, which is reversed in both. So they have a subconscious fear, which means they're not aware of it, of the reverse. So for the avoidantly attached, they have a subconscious fear of abandonment, and for the anxiously attached, they have a subconscious fear of intimacy, which sounds counterintuitive, because the anxiously attached person just wants to get closer to somebody. They don't understand that they actually have the fear of intimacy as well, which means that they're scared to get close to somebody. But it's that scared of being close to somebody that drives them towards somebody who is avoidantly attached and moving away from them. And likewise, the avoidantly attached person doesn't recognize they have a fear of abandonment, but it's that subconscious fear that drives them towards somebody who will never leave them. So it's like this, it's this role reversal thing that we're talking about, or the sort of the flipped fear in both attachment styles. And I think that kind of can help to give you a bit of an understanding of partners and why they do what they do, and why it's slightly maybe triggering for you as well. And that's a really important point to really to think about when we're talking about attachment theory.
Yeah, I think is very, very important, because it comes as a projection, right? So all these dynamics, all the relationships that come into your life are coming to you to show you the shadows, to show you the wounds that you need to work on. So it's an opportunity for us. Is not to say that you need to stay, because then that partner is showing you what you need to work on. If you've identified that their relationship is not serving for you, is not bringing the best in you, and not both working together towards building a conscious relationship, of course you don't need to stay. But it's more about no pointing fingers, but rather, okay, what is this dynamic trying to show me? So I remember in my relationship, before I found attachment theory, I wanted to understand, why we couldn't work on. So actually that dynamic showed me that I was being avoidant to myself. So I was the anxious in that dynamic, and my partner was the avoidant. So what happens there is that the anxious partner is being avoidant to themselves. So that's why we are attracting someone who is actually showing us more independence, more emotional independence in that sense. And then that's coming for us to work on it and see it from a different point of view. So that's why usually these both dynamics are attracting each other, because of the different nuances and the fear of abandonment and the fear of rejection. So both are coming together to see that. And then I call these dynamics trauma bonds. So we both come with these, like trauma or these wounds that we all have is not specific to one person or just people who are broken. We all, because trauma is not the severity of the situation, is how as kids we perceive that situation. It could be something so small, and I think Megan, you mentioned that at the beginning. My parents left me to my grandparents on the weekend, and that can develop a fear of abandonment. Or one of my parents is constantly working and coming home on the weekends because they work in a different city. So that could also develop an avoidance attachment style. So it's coming together as partners to be humans, to actually have compassion to the other human being that has also been through trauma, and be able to change it or heal it. So I think, yeah, before we give kind of like the last tips, and I wanted to give some of the characteristics of people if we want to move towards a secure attachment, what we need to be looking into, and what are the different areas in our life that we can start focusing on if we want to move to a more secure attachment. And as we mentioned, we all have insecurities, we all have had wounds, so no one is 100% secure. So don't feel that there's something wrong with you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's about, well, like I said before, I think working with someone is a really, really good way to tackle this stuff, because you're not going to see and you're not going to know what you don't know. You're going to be biased in your views of things, and it's going to really help to have somebody to reflect back to you where this is all sort of not marrying up, or where you're sabotaging yourself in relationships. But I think a big part is obviously you have to take responsibility for your emotional world. That's not anybody else's responsibility, and that's a big place to start. So like, where do you get emotionally triggered? Like, and start looking at that, because we often think that emotional triggering is happening outside of us. We think it is the thing that's happening outside of us that's causing this emotional reaction. We have to start realizing that the thing outside of us is just happening. The person is just doing the thing that they're doing. The event outside of us is just happening. We make the meaning. We get triggered by it. We have the emotional response. So why are you having that emotional response? Where does that come from? Why is that coming up for you? And really start to address those things, because if you can get a handle on that and understand why you're showing up in the ways that you're showing up, you're going to have the option then to change the ways that you show up and change the experiences that you have. But again, really helps to work with somebody around that, because often it's very hard to see where you're creating your own kind of prism and like where you're actually sabotaging yourself. Because if you've never done this work, or you've certainly not done it for a while, you're going to be very set in your thinking, and set in the ways that you view what's happening around you, and it's going to
your perception.
It's going to feel like it's out there that's causing in here, when actually it's in here that's causing what's happening out there for you. And that's that's a really big piece of advice I would give, is start looking at those emotional triggers, where they come from, what's triggering them, and what that's bringing up for you, because that's the key to all of this. If you can understand your emotional world in as many opportunities as possible, this is going to change how you experience the world and how you experience relationships.
Yeah, I agree with you. For me, like, number one will be emotional regulation. That's key. And as you mentioned, just taking accountability for that, because no one is responsible for making you feel good, for making you feel safe, for making you feel valued. That's only our responsibility. It's only when we start healing that we also start attracting people that are gonna show us that to ourselves. So emotional regulation is one. Another one that I will say is also very important is identifying what are our needs in relationships and being able to communicate them. Because what happens is we get into relationships without talking about these important things, or also we are just expecting that our partner is going to read our minds and is going to know straight away what are our needs, and then at the moment that our partner is not meeting those needs, we act or act in protest behavior. That can be silent treatment, or I'm just gonna distance myself, or I'm so hurt that I shut down. So instead of reacting the same way that you've been used to, you need to build self-awareness. So then you understand, okay, in this situation, I'm going to challenge the story I'm telling myself, and I'm going to react or not even react, respond in a different way. Mm-hmm. Communicating what you feel. So you can even say, when you do Y or X, I feel sad, or I feel that you don't care about me. So you are not putting the responsibility on them. You're saying, I feel this way when you do this. So that's already taking ownership of your feelings and not attacking the other person, because you are the one who have the feelings, and the other person is not putting the feelings on you. So just being able to communicate that. So another aspect will be communication skills. So being able to communicate instead of react. And that comes as well with emotional regulation. And yeah, I think those are probably the main ones. But as Megan said, very important. I've worked with coaches. I know Megan has also worked with coaches. Like, this work is very important, to be working with another person who is able to see things from a different point of view and perspective, because we are set in our ways, and for us it's very difficult to be able to see different ways of reacting or responding or being in relationships. So that's why it's very important. Whoever you decide to work with, I think that's key, and is a very transformational journey. Mm-hmm. So I think we can we can leave it here, unless people have questions. Or Megan, if you want to also add something last. I know you have to run maybe like in a few minutes.
Yes, I have clients I need to see, but no, I think this has been a good chat, and yeah, I mean, it's there's so much more to it. We could go all day.
Yeah, we can go for hours. Yeah.
But I think this has been like a good intro chat to it, and certainly for people that are aware of attachment theory and sort of want to take it to the next level of actually applying it and kind of looking at, well, okay, how do I actually move forward from this? I've identified that I have these kind of this attachment style, or I relate to this attachment style. Now, how do I move forward from it? I think that this we've sort of covered, what you would do, next steps, really. But yeah, there's so much more to learn, and there's certainly it's gonna be different for everybody as well, because your journey is unique. It is, yeah. And the things that you've experienced are unique, and so it's about understanding yourself and what those intricacies are, and those nuances are that are you know what make you and what triggers you, and what is your story. And I think it's a really, really important thing to note. It's not just as simple as, you know, saying that you are anxiously attached or you're avoidantly attached, and that's it. There's so much, and it is worth exploring those nuances for sure.
Yes, perfect. Yeah, I think that we can leave it with that really important message, as we mentioned as well at the beginning. This is an amazing journey. It's not for you to think that there's something wrong with you, that you are broken. The other way around is taking ownership and owning the person you are, with all the things that we've been through, all our challenges, and being able to change and heal. And that actually empowers you. It's not the other way around. The more you learn about yourself, the more it empowers you, the more it motivates you and your loved ones in that journey. So yeah, I really encourage you to take on this journey. And thank you so much, Megan, for being here with me and with everyone in this chat. I think it was a really good chat, and we love these topics. We can keep going for hours, as you mentioned, but I know you have to go. So if no one has any other questions, we're going to be posting the videos for people who couldn't join, so they can watch the replay.
Yeah. And I would just say as well, for anybody that does want to do this work, I have a program which I will be running in April. So if you are keen, please reach out. And if you're watching this in the replay and it's past April, I'm sure I will have another program or one-to-one available if that's something that you want to explore with me. More than happy to have a chat, a free call about it, and just chat and see where you're at and what you need help with, and how I might be able to help you. And if I can certainly talk you through what I do.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, so Megan and I are here for anyone who would like to ask any questions or DM us for specific details about our programs where we cover all these topics. So we can leave it here, and thank you so much everyone for joining, and hopefully the ones joining now is the end so you can watch the replay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Megan. Have a
Thank
great day.
you. See you, Ali.
See you soon. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you everyone for joining.